Your body may not need more force. It might just need more safety. Your body might not have been resisting healing. It's just maybe a continuation of the protecting that it's been doing the whole time. Hey, beautiful soul, and welcome to Dear Body, I'm Listening, the podcast for women living with chronic illness, invisible symptoms, and the quiet grief of feeling dismissed in your own body. I'm Donna Piper, and here we tell the truth about healing, the messy parts, the hopeful parts, and the parts no one prepared us for. This is a space for real talk, nervous system safe support, and learning to trust your body again, one breath at a time. Hey, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Dear Body, I'm Listening. I'm Donna, and today we're talking about fascial counterstrain, what it is, where it came from, and why this gentle hands-on therapy may matter for chronic illness bodies dealing with pain, fatigue, bracing, swelling, and the ever nervous system overload. This episode came from a DM. One of you asked me, what is fascial counterstrain and how are you using it with ME/chronic fatigue syndrome and lymphatic issues? And I love this question because fascial counterstrain can sound very mysterious. If you've never heard of it, and even if you have, it sounds something like being whispered up in an anatomy lab. But let's break it down a little more. Fascial counterstrain is a gentle manual therapy where a trained practitioner finds specific tender points in the body and places you into comfortable positions to help calm protective tension in the tissues. It's not a deep tissue massage or anything, and it's not stretching. It's not adjusting like you would think in like chiropractic or someone stretching you. And it's not someone digging an elbow into your trap while you question your entire bloodline. It's usually soft, precise, and honestly sometimes so gentle that your brain is like, is anything happening? And then your body is like, actually, yes. Please stop interrupting. For me, fascial counterstrain has not been a cure, but a great tool to support all of my chronic illnesses. It has helped certain kinds of pain. It has helped my body feel less guarded. And it has felt supported for that heavy, backed up, congested feeling that can happen when my lymphatic system is not exactly giving me a 5-star customer service. So today we're going to talk about what fascial counterstrain is, how it connects to fascia, why it may be helpful for sensitive chronic illness bodies, and why gentle does not mean useless. Because chronic illness bodies do not need another push. Sometimes you just really need a soft reset, not a hard one. Real talk, the part where we tell the truth and keep it tender. So when you live with chronic illness, your body can start to feel like it's bracing all the time, especially if you have hypermobility or connective tissue issues, but any of them all. Your body's already on high alert, so it's always looking for the next threat. And this can be physically and emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. But today we're talking about the physical body. Your jaw could get tighter, your neck could be tight, or it could just be chronic tightness. The ribs are usually locked at somewhere along the thoracic. The pelvis is usually guarded. Your shoulders could be up at your ears, legs heavy, lymph sluggish, breath shallow. Everything is just a little bit clenched. And for years, many of us were told some version of, move more, stretch more, exercise more, strengthen your core, lose weight, relax, get rid of stress. They're all good things, but if you don't really know what of those things or combination that your body needs, sometimes it leads to more stress on your system. And when I hear relax or try to live stress-free, I'm just kind of like, how? Especially when you have chronic illnesses like I do. And, food is a big thing. If you listen to my other episodes, I have a food trigger. Mainly I don't eat enough, and I've really struggled through my life to have a good relationship with food. I eat well, but food and me don't get along, and I haven't quite figured this one out. So, just making sure I don't get glutened or soyed somewhere when I'm either making my own food or out in the world is stressful enough. And the issue with chronic illness or invisible illness bodies, it's not that they're too tight, right? It's not like we're just too tight and we need to be stretched. It means that we're protective and we've been overusing something in a very specific way in order to function. So, our overuse, our tightness is actually really functional in our bodies because our bodies are compensating to deal with our bones and our muscles and our brain and our organs and everything that is pulling on those things, trying to be upright, walk, lift something, talk, do things, engage. So our body is doing all of these things just to kind of make us human. And if you have a normative connective tissue body, you don't have all this extra energy to expend. But in our bodies, they do. And at the same time, they're just trying to keep us upright and either thinking or functioning, eating, whatever, going to the bathroom. They're also dealing with pain, inflammation, fatigue, swelling, nervous system dysregulation, connective tissue weirdness, and a body that learned a long time ago we're not safe, so we're going to hold everything together with tension and vibes. And honestly, the body is brilliant in that way. But something in these coping strategies, are pretty dramatic. And when they go on for decades, then you feel the drama. And thank you, nervous system, all of our nervous systems for protecting us, right? Because, I'm really grateful. But the lock in my neck, my clenched jaw, my tightened ribs that makes my breathing much more shallow. And, this lipedema jive stuff that I have that makes my legs feel heavy and painful and swollen. And a very slow lymphatic system. I could do without all that. However, that's how my body is, and that's why Fascial Counterstrain caught my attention. My MLD therapist actually learned the technique or found out about her colleagues or both, and she thought that could be something that could be really helpful with my ME. That's what we were focusing on the time last summer before I went to get my surgeries. So I said, why not? I've tried everything else. I've never heard of this. Let's go for it. So I dove right in. And the cool thing about fascial counterstrain is that even though it does sound very forceful, right? It doesn't come with force. It's not about doing more or pushing through. There's no pain, no gain situation. You don't have to do all these things that you think you might have to in order to get better. It's quite the reverse. And it's a place where your body feels protective, and that position helps it feel safe and safe enough to soften. And so that alone feels pretty revolutionary when we're talking about all the different tools. A lot of the tools that I talk about are very gentle. The doctors and the different tools I talk about are really looking at the chronic illness body, whether you have lipedema, MCAS, POTS, hypermobility EDS, hypermobility spectrum disorder, just regular good old hypermobility, or ME/chronic fatigue syndrome. They're looking at it holistically and seeing that the normal prescriptions haven't worked with their patients. So they've had to go intuitively to what did, and that is a softer, gentler approach. And for me, fascial counterstrain has helped reduce some of the physical load my body is carrying. Because we have to remember that doing just, getting our bodies upright or moving or sometimes just lying there, that takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort and energy to breathe, to eat, to think, and then also pain. Pain takes a lot of energy. And swelling takes energy from your body. So your body is like just giving its resources to the areas that it needs to concentrate on in order to keep, functioning. So it pulls some energy away from other areas of the bodies that are definitely necessary, but maybe not as necessary. Because your body has been in a fight or flight sense. And that takes a lot of energy to stay in that system. That our systems are only really designed to be in fight and flight for a little bit when there's imminent danger, and then we go back to rest and digest. But in a chronic illness body, that going back to rest and digest doesn't really happen. And you could do 1,000 mantras and you could do all of these things to de-stress meditation, but the body has to feel safe enough to let go. And until you figure out what your body needs in order to have it feel safe, those things don't really work. They don't hurt. They help to train the body, right? So keep on doing them. But if you've done some relaxation techniques, you've listened to meditations, you've closed your eyes and tried to relax every muscle in your body, or any of those things, or anything that I say at the end of my episodes, it's a little, fitness snack or a really feel good flow situation. Sometimes those don't really put your body back into a state of rest and digest. So, this is a really good approach that supports that. The connective thread, where the body, story, and science start holding hands. So, what exactly is fascial counterstrain? Let's start with the family tree. The original technique was called strain counterstrain. It was developed by Lawrence Jones, an osteopathic physician in the 1950s. The basic idea was different from a lot of traditional body work. Instead of forcing a painful area to stretch, lengthen, or release, the practitioner would find a tender point and then place the body into a position of comfort. In the classic method, that position is often held for a short period of time, commonly around 90 seconds, and then the body is slowly brought back to neutral. So instead of saying to the body, open up, stretch, release, hurry up, we have errands, counterstrain says, what position makes the tissue feel safer? And that is the whole mood. Comfort first, safety first, precision instead of pressure. Now, fascial counterstrain is a newer expansion of that original work. It's associated with a physical therapist, Brian Tuckey, who expanded the counterstrain approach into the fascial system and different tissue systems of the body. So when we say fascial counterstrain, we're not just talking about a tight muscle. We're talking about a method that looks for tender points that may reflect protective reflexes in different tissues. That could include muscles, fascia, nerves, lymphatic tissues, venous tissues, arterial tissues, visceral or organ-related tissues, connective tissue structures, brain tissues, anything that has to do with your body. It's looking at that. It's not just if the muscle is tight and bringing it back. It looks at all systems throughout your body. And that is what is really interesting, I think, for chronic people like us, that our symptoms are rarely just in one system, right? They're multi-system. They're very complex. Even if you just, quote and just, I'm not minimizing, have lipedema, then there's a whole lot of systems involved in that. Or even when your neck hurts, if you have upper cervical spine instability, that can lead to migraines. It could lead to neck pain plus fatigue plus swelling plus dizziness plus brain fog plus pressure plus inflammation plus the haunting question, why does my body feel like this? All of these things. So it's not just one thing. And when you have multiple chronic illnesses that really are all related, but they manifest in different ways, and you have to treat them all with a little nuance, something like a fascial counterstrain that looks at all your symptoms and takes the guesswork out of it. Because let's be honest, every time I've gone to a doctor, whether it's a specialist in one of these areas or a specialist with maybe a triad, it's really a crapshoot. It's really, okay, well, this works most of the time, try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. But it could work for a little bit, but you have to monitor it. So, nothing is like, do this and X will happen. It's do this and maybe it will happen. So, at least with fascial counterstrain, I don't have to go in with like a plan and figure it out and test. You basically lie there and they do this cool thing where they touch your head and they find these tender points and they gently reset them. And when fascial counterstrain is looking at the body more globally, it really does ask first what tissue system is in protection, where is the body guarding, what area is tender, what position decreases the tenderness, and can the body soften without being forced? That is very different from chasing down the loudest symptom to try to figure out the root cause. It just really goes in there, and what is most pronounced, that is what is dealt with. So you may go in with neck pain, and the practitioner may check areas around your ribs, abdomen, pelvis, head, or even tissue that points related to lymphatic or venous flow or brain function. I know I've gone in and like your heart gives out like an electrical current, and that was somehow impinged. So really, I can go in with whatever and they will address that. But if that's not really what is first on the list, it gets, checked out later on and sometime in future appointments. Because maybe really for me, there was a lot of things with my brain and my heart that I don't really have the symptoms. Yes, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a brain issue. I have migraines, brain issue. There's connective tissue in my brain fog, et cetera, et cetera. But I wouldn't necessarily go, I think there's something going on with my brain, and thinking that this thing can help. So to my surprise, it did help. So I can't tell you if I felt a difference in the instant when they were doing the check and then doing the technique to get that little area back in line and happy again. But can tell you accumulation of these appointments did start to make me feel better. And I did notice a difference. I just can't say specifically like, yeah, it touched my rib and then my rib like feels so much better, right? Like I can't describe it that way. I just know what they were doing does support because the body is fully connected, right? And this is not in a woo, your left eyebrow is holding your childhood trauma way, because, it might. Though honestly, you know, it probably could. It could be related to all that. But it's also based on anatomy and a lot of research and a lot of dedication and time from the practitioners and their teachers to really try to figure out these conditions, especially conditions that don't have a lot of research or support around them. And they're kind of mysterious, and you are an experiment that they can really just go in and help you figure out, okay, your body is screaming this in a very silent scream. And these amazing practitioners find that and then put it back in place. Because if one area is guarded, inflamed, compressed, or irritated, another area usually compensates for that. And then another compensates for that area that's being compensated because of the initial issue, and et cetera, and et cetera. And it's really kind of looking like, your whole body has been playing a Jenga game with your nervous system that already had a low battery just to kind of figure out how to make itself work with what it's in front of them, right? There's this pathology here, and all these other systems changed to kind of compensate so you could still function, which again is quite a miracle when I think about it with our bodies and how grateful I am, even though a lot of times I think all my chronic conditions are a little bit of a pain in the butt. I am very amazed that I am still functioning after learning all this crap that was going in under the surface that I didn't really know. I knew that I felt horrible, but I didn't know why. So during the session, the practitioner usually has you lie on a table fully clothed, and they assess your tender points by gently touching your skull, all the different areas of your skull. So your skull has all these bones to it, and there's different pressure that comes through. And however they do it, I'm not a practitioner, so I will not be super specific about. That's how they find these areas that are off. And then they go to sometimes they can correct it just by holding it and changing the rhythm. And then other times they go to the area of the body and do that gentle sort of classic counterstrain approach. But it's like they're just touching your body just gently. So if you have a lot of lipedema pain, like I did, and uncomfortable being touched in certain areas, actually their level of touch didn't aggravate or hurt. It's just a very light, gentle touch. And it's so gentle, you may think, is this doing anything? Shouldn't this be more intense? Am I feeling this? Am I not feeling this? Why are they touching there? And you could chat with them and they'll let you know what's going on depending on their personality and your personality and what you want. But you can also just lay there peacefully and they can do their thing. And when the session's over, you could ask them what they went over and they'll tell you, and then you can come back in a week, a few days, or, a month, depending on where your severity is. And I want to really kind of emphasize this point. Gentle does not mean nothing is happening. Because that is really, as a chronic illness peeps, we need to be gentle with everything that we do, right? It's not that we can't handle it, it's that our bodies don't respond well when we force ourselves to it. So it's not a weakness. It's not like we're tougher than most folks out there. However, we need gentleness with ourselves and how we approach exercise, fitness, self-care, thoughts, etc., etc. So let's talk about what is fascia. Most people kind of know about fascia now. It's been more popular in the last little bit, or maybe that's just my algorithm. I learned about it a long time ago with all my other studies, but we never was just really talking about it as much as you talk about it now. So fascia is connective tissue. It is a web-like tissue that surrounds, supports, and connects structures throughout the body. It wraps around muscles, supports organs, it moves around nerves, blood vessels, and lymphatic vessels. Think of fascia like the body's internal wrapping and communication system, not wrapping like tight Spanx situation or, our compression tight, but it's more like living responsive web that helps tissues glide, support each other, and move together. And fascia is not just dead packaging. It has nerves. It can be sensitive. It could respond to stress, injury, surgery, inflammation, posture, trauma, repetitive movement, illness, and protective guarding. When fascia is irritated or restricted, the body may feel stiff, heavy, painful, compressed, or stuck. And I want to be careful because fascia is not the answer to everything. The internet loves to take one thing and, make it like, oh my God, it's the end all. Like, eat this one thing, do this one thing. If the root cause was generally overlooked for decades, and now that's all people are looking at for the one like linchpin. I know I was searching for that forever. However, it doesn't have to be, oh, if your hip hurts, it's fascia. It could be connected to that, but you could have a bone spur. It could be a broken bone. If your shoulder hurts, fascia. Like, no, you could have a micro tear somewhere. It could be, the body is not just one thing or the other. They all work together. So if something is not working well, there's usually other systems involved. And especially when we're talking about chronic pain, and if you have hypermobility issues or lipedema, anything with connective tissue issues, so that's also MCAS, POTS, and chronic fatigue syndrome, fascia is part of all of this, especially when it comes to the chronic pain, the swelling, if you've had surgery recovery, any scarring that happens, any falls, or when you're hypermobile, there's a good chance you've subluxed something or twisted an ankle 1,000 times. There's certain areas of the body that lend herself to more injuries. So there's some scarring, right? So then there's more bracing around that, maybe less lymphatic flow, but it also connective tissue and fascia all are about the lymphatic system. And then on top of it, when our central nervous system is dysregulated because we're living too much in the fight and flight, then fascia is also, again, very much a part of the conversation. So, why may this matter for ME/chronic fatigue syndrome or any other chronic illness bodies? And let's talk about ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, for a moment, because that is initially why I started to really help support that part. That's where I was. If you laid out all my 5 issues, number 1, I really needed to get my CFS in order so I could have energy to heal, to do stuff, so I could deal with the lipedema, so I could get moving, so I could get my lymph flow moving, so then I could deal with my, the MCAS, hypermobility, and POTS. A lot of times they already go together in a little triad, but really they have other friends. Lipedema, chronic fatigue syndrome, it could have endometriosis, PCOS, or PMOS now, I think they're calling it, adenomyosis, different things that can happen as well, could cluster. But really, the chronic fatigue syndrome was like at the top of my list. And ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, is not just being tired, and it's not like, oh, I need to take a nap and reset. No, it's a different level. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, it's hard to explain. Because ME, CFS, is a complex illness that can affect energy, pain, sleep, cognition, immune function, nervous system regulation, and orthostatic tolerance. One of the hallmark features in the whole chronic fatigue syndrome world is post-exertional malaise, or PEM. PEM is when symptoms worsen after physical, mental, emotional, or upright exertion. And the cruel little plot twist to this is that it may not happen right away. It can show up 72 hours later. Sometimes it could be, 12 hours or an hour later. Sometimes you really know. And then maybe 2-3 days pass and you're wiped out. And you're like, what did I do? And then because you have cognitive issues because of all this, it's hard sometimes to remember what you did 3 days ago. What could be the trigger? So you can look fine doing the thing that also happens with hypermobility bodies and lipedema, POTS, all of them, really. And then they're like, oh, that was easy, no problem. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a few hours or a few days later, there's a crash. And it's like it just totally wiped you out. Felt like you got hit by a truck and you're like, I don't understand what I did. Same if you have a gluten intolerance or celiac, or like me, I have undiagnosed celiac disorder, but basically my body responds like I have celiac, but I was only told I have gluten intolerance or gluten allergy, and I have a soy allergy. So if I get gluten or soy, they also mimic what it looks like for chronic fatigue syndrome. So I have lots to pull from, and my memory just can't handle it. And that's why Fascial Counterstrain has been a very nice tool to help support it. So I don't have to figure it out. And I think Fascial Counterstrain has helped me in more ways than I probably even realize at this point, because some of the stressors that my body just is used to going through has been eliminated because pathways have been turned back on. Systems that support systems internally have been able to respond now. They were turned off because there was more important things that my body was doing, but they never got turned back on. So now that they got turned back on and the tissues are happy again and they can talk, they can come play again in the game and help support the rest of the body. And so let's just talk a few moments about why this may matter for lymphatic and venous flow. The other reason is, I have some central lymphatic clearing issues where no matter how amazing my MLD therapist is and how much self-care I do and doing all the right points and all the right orders and the vibration plates and the swimming and the walking, the food, etc., 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 my swelling pools around my stomach and my deep lymphatic system has not been able to be cleared yet. So, and one of the things that fascial counterstrain looks at and really recognizes is your lymphatic system. Because your lymphatic system helps with fluid balance, immune function, and clearing waste from the tissues. You also have the lymphatic system, which does the same thing as your lymphatic system, but for your brain. Some people talk about them really independently. Sometimes when people say lymphatic system, they just kind of assume also that it's also the brain clearing toxins. And having ME/chronic fatigue syndrome, when my slowing in where the body drains in my different termini and really trying to get that thoracic duct cleared out so that fluid goes to where it needs to go to get eliminated from the body or turned into whatever else it needs to get turned into, that really when it builds up in the brain, that's what creates a lot of my cognitive issues, brain fog, that doesn't help the hypothalamus speak to the central nervous system, etc., etc. And your venous system returns blood back into your heart. So a lot of women with lipedema have venous issues. I luckily don't have that leg venous insufficiency. I'm pretty good there. But, I have all these other things, so I don't need one more thing. So I'm pretty grateful about that. But that is something that also happens, returning, and if you have POTS, like leg pooling, blood pooling, it's hard to get all that stuff up to your heart where it needs to go. Because how our system is designed, it's a closed system with different pressures. And so your negative pressure should be around your chest, and the positive pressure should be around the rest of your body. I think I have that right, or vice versa. But do you want this place, you want the system to pull in everything up into your drainage system, either into your heart or into your lymphatic thoracic ducts that drain into the heart or also get eliminated from either urine, feces, and or sweat, etc. So when those systems feel sluggish or congested, the body can feel heavy, swollen, tight, achy, full, or backed up. And like I said, if you have lipedema, lymphedema, tendencies, inflammation, chronic illness, or recovering from a surgery, you know that heavy tissue feeling, it's just not annoying, it's also exhausting. So some fascial counterstrain practitioners assess and treat tender points related to these lymphatic and venous structures that you may not even know that are turned on or off, right? The lymphatic system, luckily with social media and everything, there's more information about the lymphatic system and what goes on, and more people are educated about it. However, it's still the newer system out there, so we still don't know a lot about all the things. So that's where I love that Fascial Counterstrain. It does have some really interesting ways how they find some points to help just support that whole system. So in the show notes, I will leave some links to Fascial Counterstrain and where there are practitioners that could be in your area. For me, I have to travel about an hour down to San Diego from Orange County. There's no practitioners yet in my area, but for me, it is worth the travel. Mythbuster moment, because some of what we've been told is absolute nonsense. Today's myth is if it's gentle, it isn't doing anything. So this one, I talked about it earlier, but I really want to talk about it again because somewhere along the way, we were taught that healing has to hurt. Like even when you heal something, like people don't, if you go in for something that's hurt, you want it to make it better. But, If you have knee surgery, you need to extend and bend that leg, and boy, does that hurt, right? If you wake up from back surgery, they're going to walk you around. So there's still, even though things are getting repaired, there's still a time of hurt. If you want to build muscle and look great, you have to feel pain and hurt muscles, right? So we don't want that anymore in this world of if you have a chronic illness body. No more pushing harder. No stretching more. Don't go to the end of like how far you could stretch. Push it. No, push it. No, dig deeper. No, sweat more. No, take the tire and push it up and down the street 4 times until you pass out. None of that stuff. And it works. Those things work for bodies that have more normative issues, normative connective tissue, etc. But for our bodies, no, 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 no. They do not work for us. And unfortunately, even if they've worked for a while, because I was a dancer, I danced for like 10 hours a day. I pushed my body to its limits. Then I did sports and I also did marathon training. And, I'm not a runner, but I did that. So I've mountain biked and hiked up crazy hills that probably I shouldn't have. But I pushed my body because I thought that's like, oh, it's my body's fine. It's mentally I can't do. When actually my mind was saying, hey, dude, like, chill out. You don't have to push through it. Like, maybe you don't want to do this and endure these endurance sports because your body is chronically ill. You just don't know it yet. And the more you know about the body and listen to that, and really I'm like, okay, it's not a push through mental issue. I don't have to toughen up. Like, I don't know why that's a thing in our society. Like, why does that's a positive? But changing that and being like, oh, gentle. It's gentle, easy does it. That is more effective for your body, especially when you're in a healing phase. And if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, your healing phase is like years, right? Lipedema, years to figure out how to manage it. It took years to kind of do all these loop-de-loops in your body. And then when you figure it out, there's sometimes it's straightforward, certain things you need to do. Other times you have to be like, oh, I was doing that already. Why didn't I see these different results? So you have to always peel things back and figure it out. But it's gentle, gentle, gentle. And while you're figuring out, the more you can be gentle with yourself, the better. Because again, all of these chronic illnesses, they don't really love stress. They're already stressed out. So then pushing or trying to force to figure out or lamenting or feeling frustrated, which is natural, if that's a constant, then it doesn't always help you get your body into the state where it needs to be nice and chill and understand that it's safety first and then do some movement, safety first, and then do some other tools. So that's what's great about fascial counterstrain is that kind of is built into the system, how you just lie there and they figure out what needs to be turned back on in a very gentle, safe manner because that's their whole premise. Feel good flow. One small shift, one safer breath, one thing to take with you. So today's Feel Good Flow is not about fascial counterstrain, right? It's not a treatment in that because you can't really do a DIY counterstrain on a podcast. And, this podcast is just for general knowledge, my experience, see if you can relate and not feel alone. And also resources or things to point you in that you may like, you may hate, whatever, but nothing's going to hurt you. But again, it's not medical advice, and I'm not saying you have to do this. It's just information to see if, you would like to dabble. So let's just, on this gentle wave that we're on, let's stay there. And let's do a little exercise in feeling safety and embracing gentleness. And again, if you're not feeling safe in the space you're at, obviously don't do it if you're driving, but when you close your eyes, and you don't feel safe enough to do that, keep them open. So figure out that we're figuring out your level of safety, not mine, not your neighbors, not someone else, that, your level. And if your eyes are open, just let your gaze land somewhere neutral. And if it's closed, just continue to feel your eyes closed. Feel how that feels on your body with having no sight. And just ask yourself, how comfortable do you feel? And do you feel safe? So those questions can be, some people love a Likert scale, like 1 to 10. Other people just want to ask a question and move on. So figure out how your body and you talk to each other and start asking questions. So my eyes are closed. Okay, do I feel safe to proceed? And if you don't feel safe, stay there, start there. Open your eyes and really ask yourself these questions until you feel safe. If you don't feel safe, start asking yourself why questions. There's something pretty famous with 7 why questions. I can't remember. I think it's more in business. But the more whys you ask, the more you'll get to the bottom of what's going on. And usually it takes about 7 whys. So if closing your eyes felt good and you're ready to move on, then move on to your jaw. See if there's any clenching there. And then if there is, say, okay, what position can I be in, sitting here, lying here, to make my jaw feel safe enough to relax and unclench? You might need to have a neck pillow underneath your neck. Your head may need to be supported more because you might have some upper cervical spine instability. You can have your traps. Maybe your lower traps aren't strong enough because your body is just pulling in so much that, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many reasons why. So with each body part that I name, figure out if you feel safe enough to relax it. If you don't, what do you need? And then if you still don't, why? Then we're going to go through your tongue. If your tongue feels relaxed, where does it land in your mouth? Is it at the bottom of your palate? Can you lift it up to the roof, to the upper palate? Can the tongue go behind the teeth? All the same questions. Do you feel safe enough to go in these positions? And if you're not, why? And sometimes the answer is just your body's not designed for that, or it's not going to do that today. So move on. And then notice your shoulders. How do they feel? Tense, not tense. There's a spectrum. And keep on doing that from your just intuition and see what body part leads to next. Is it an elbow, a hand, a finger, a knee, a belly button, etc.? And do that for your whole system. And then after you're done with this exercise, so we're not going to do it in time right now. So this is something for you to continue. Take a moment and write down some of the things that have come up for you. What have you noticed? And this is just a nice, gentle exercise where you're not trying to force, you're just getting nice information in order to use later. And then, if you do this same exercise the next day or in a few hours, it might be totally different, right? So you want to really build safety within your body over time, and you're the building block. It's your conversations with your body. So you're not putting it in unsafe places or forcing it to be, but you're asking your body and you're guiding your body into that safety. And that is where you start building some trust with your body again, because chronic illness breaks internal trust with our bodies. Now, why? It is. It's a whole thing. We think our bodies need to respond some way. Doctors think it needs to as well. Our body doesn't. We go decades without knowing. And then lo and behold, we have some trust issues with our bodies, caregivers, people around us, doctors, et cetera, et cetera. So do this exercise as often as you can to really start to rebuild trust and safety in your system. This is shared education and lived experience, not medical advice, and is not meant to be. Check in with your body, check in with your clinician, and find out what fits your life. So, fascial counterstrain is a gentle manual therapy approach that grew out of strain counterstrain, originally developed by Dr. Lawrence Jones. The modern fascial counterstrain approach expands that work into the fascial system and into different tissue systems of the body, including musculoskeletal, nervous system, lymphatic, venous, arterial, and visceral structures. In simple language, it is a way of helping the body reduce projective tension by finding tender points and placing the body in positions of comfort. Not force, not stretch, not a push through. Comfort, precision, safety. And for me, it has been a very supportive tool. It has helped me with certain types of pain that were actually physical, maybe my ankle, but also pain that's not so obvious that was created from surgeries, from decades of stress and chronic illness. And it really did support my ME and CFS with helping some brain structures get kind of back online a little bit, and at least enough for me to really see, like, I'm doing all these other things to help my brain and my central nervous system connect. Now this is another little added piece that helped turn some things back on. So it's not a guarantee and it's not a magic wand, but it's more like a gentle conversation with your tissues, that have been yelling at you for a long time. And if you take nothing else from this episode, take this. Your body may not need more force. It might just need more safety. Your body might not have been resisting healing. It's just maybe a continuation of the protecting that it's been doing the whole time. But if you've tried fascial counterstrain, manual lymphatic work, or the parent technique, or gentle therapy that I have not mentioned that helped your chronic illness, please let me know. You could either put a comment under here, wherever you're listening to this. You could DM me at my social media, which is Instagram at the Donna Piper, or you can always email at hello@donnapiper.com and let me know what has helped. Or if you would like me to talk about a tool that you haven't tried but you're interested in. Because your questions matter, your lived experience matters, and your body story deserves to be a part of the conversation. Thanks for listening to Dear Body, I'm Listening. If this episode has helped you feel a little more seen, or a little more sane, or a little less alone in your body, share it with someone who needs that too. And remember, there is nothing wrong with you. You've just been living in a body that has been misunderstood. Keep listening, keep trusting, and keep coming home to yourself. See you next time. Thanks for listening to Dear Body, I'm Listening. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, a little more steady, or a little less alone in what your body has been carrying, share it with someone who might need that too. And remember, there's nothing wrong with you. You've just been living in a body that hasn't been understood. Until next time, keep listening gently.